It is 12 o'clock on a very, very windy Monday. But happy May 1st, happy May Day. Thank you for spending it with Downtown Rotary. I'm looking for the flag. There's no flag. All right, then let's move into our four-way test. Would you all please stand and recite it with me? Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Please remain standing while Tom Bosch comes forward with our invocation. Tom.
Thank you, Cindy. I invite you, if you so desire, to join me in a word of prayer. Heavenly and gracious Father, today we have many things to be thankful for. As we learn today about our beautiful downtown, we're thankful for that past, those leaders that have created a vision of growing and developing. So we're thankful for that all the way to well over 100 years ago, and the beautiful courtside buildings that we enjoy today. For the present, and as we see before us our skyline change in that view, we're thankful for the partnership between the public and the private sector to grow. And in the future, Heavenly Father, that I think the possibilities are endless, so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for what you created us to be relational, to build these relationships that can foster and develop. We know, Heavenly Father, many of the people that are at the forefront, but let us always remember those individuals, as they would say, they didn't do it on their own. They had a team of individuals, those people who maybe we don't see their names in the paper or on TV. They are every bit as instrumental in changing our landscape. So we're thankful for that. Watch over us, guide us, and lead us. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Tom, thank you so very, very much. Dave Brown and Dave Eastland, you had your hands full today doing it old school with all of our members and guests, so thank you so much for being a welcoming face and taking on that task today. You're welcome to sit if you would like. Of course, those of you who are guests, in about 5 seconds you get to stand again, because we are so grateful when we have guests that come and spend their Monday at noon with us. So if you are a guest today, please stand so that we may offer you a warm welcome. We're so glad that you're here. And Jody's a guest. We've got some guests over here. Thank you for being here today. We have 2 items of Rotary business. The first is a new member induction. I would like to invite Matt Paulson to the stage with our newest Rotarian, for whom he will introduce. And he found a different set of stairs. I love it. And there they are, they're emerging. All right.
We figured we'd be less likely to fall. You all today to Wendy Mamer. Wendy grew up on a farm in Lake Benton, Minnesota. She is a graduate of Southwest Minnesota State University with a degree in communications. She moved to Sioux Falls in 2016 to work for the Skyforce, and she was their on-court MC for 5 years. Wendy is currently a suicide loss and support coordinator with the Helpline Center. She is also the lead organizer for TEDx, which I think is this Thursday at the Pavilion. Tickets still available from what I know. Wendy is also a graduate of the Billy Sutton Leadership Institute, Leadership Sioux Falls as well. Wendy, sad isn't bad, Leadership Sioux Falls, and I'm sure some other things as well. Wendy is married to Kyle, who is a nurse, anesthetist, I practiced that word, at Sanford Health. They have 2 dogs, Millie and Milo. Please welcome Wendy Mayer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would really like to thank Matt for his encouragement and support to join Rotary. Community has always been such an important aspect of my life and career. Through my work at TEDx Sioux Falls, our goal is to highlight the creativity and thought-provoking ideas of the diverse individuals that this community comprises. Similar to the four-way test of Rotary, TEDx Sioux Falls seeks truth and fairness in an attempt to create dialogue that brings communities together for the betterment for all. Aside from TEDx Sioux Falls, I am equally proud to work for the Helpline Center. Mental health advocacy and suicide prevention work has been central to who I am as a person for the past 10 years, and working for an organization that is so dedicated to that important work throughout the state of South Dakota is incredibly special. In a world that appears to be growing ever more fragmented, it is of paramount importance for me to devote my time and efforts to organizations such as Rotary, which unite individuals such as ourselves in service to our communities for the greater good. And I consider myself fortunate to have become a member of this community. Thank you.
Wendy, Matt, thank you both so much. And Wendy, good luck on Thursday. No doubt it will be a tremendous success. For those of you who may not know, Matt Paulson has recruited and brought more new members into our club than any Rotarian ever has in 1 year. You are in double digits, Matt. Thank you for sharing this mission with so many people. I'm very, very grateful. As you know, if you are a Rotarian, you can attend any Rotary meeting anywhere in the world. And today we have one of those visitors with us. I would like to invite Per Thrain Nielsen. He is Rotarian from Oslo, Norway. He is going to come share a little bit more about Rotaract. And Ben, I think you're coming as well, so why don't you both make your way. Please give them both a warm Rotary welcome.
It's great to be here. Earlier on, or a few days ago, we had a really good meeting with Tony Burke, and he asked me to say a few words on why I have this connection to Sioux Falls. I came to Augustana in 1994, and then, as any international student at Augustana, we gave some speeches about Norway and associated subjects. So this wonderful lady got me to speak to her women's group. And I got to know her and her husband. And her husband got me to give another speech about Norway. It was a 3-minute speech. And I didn't really associate this 3-minute speech about much. And this was in the spring of 1995. And I formed this great friendship that lasted for very, very many years with this couple. And their names are Larry and Beryl Ritz. So I knew them for a lot of years. So I lived in Sioux Falls, graduating from Augie with a triple major, and also working 2.5 years with Gateway. And 4 years ago, then I was invited by Ben to join the advisory board for international programs at Augustana. And I truly believe the importance of internationalization, about sharing ideas across borders. And that is really what drives me back to Sioux Falls every year now, working with Ben. So I'll turn it over to Ben.
So my name is Ben Iverson, and I'm Director of International Programs. I'm a new Rotary member out at Rotary West as well. And we're really excited to share with you just a bit about international programs at Augustana. We've got nearly 200 international students now from about 50 different countries, and we hope that they have the same sort of experience here in Sioux Falls that Per did so many years ago. We also send many of our American students abroad. Just this last January, we had almost 300 students travel to about 25 different countries, in fact. And so very much a global community and a mission, I think, that resonates, and some nice parallels between what we're doing at Augustana and with Rotary. And we're taking that in some new directions. As you probably know, there's a new Rotaract chapter established at Augustana. And it's just kind of getting started. We've got some new student leadership that Per and I met with just a day or two ago, and they're actively kind of recruiting new students on campus. And so we're here really to invite you to get engaged. There's definitely some potential for some mentorship of our students, and I'm sure that they're going to be reaching out to members of this audience soon for some guest speaker opportunities and those kinds of things.
So if we're then saying that Augustana is doing all this great international work, My thing is, where does it give value back to the community? And that is where Rotaract and all these things have a great potential. I mean, these are the leaders of tomorrow, graduating from Augustana. So how can Rotary get engaged with that? I would encourage and I would hope that all these Rotaract members can gain a mentor through Rotary. I would hope and see that we can get Rotary members into Augustana to give speeches, information to these students as they're working through their academic programs, and maybe that can lead to internships. Maybe that can lead into opportunities where we can get and engage with Rotary not only in Sioux Falls, but also internationally to share ideas. We are talking about, could we get a virtual forum in place where we're actually inviting in Rotarians worldwide to share some ideas? Where could that give benefit to the Sioux Falls business community? Could we get that to become some on-campus research programs? Could that be also internships? So I think it's a great amount of possibility in this. And it was such a pleasure to be back this year when we talked about Rotaract last year. Now we have Rotaract. Now we're saying what's next. And also next year, there is going to be the first ever Viking Days in Oslo from Augustana. I have also talked to Tony about, could we do something together with Rotary? Could we also, with the great journey you guys have had in making the Rotary downtown grow, have some knowledge transfer with Oslo Rotary as well? So again, this is just a start. So please engage. Let's have the conversation. Please, if there's any questions, reach out to Ben and see where we can go next.
Thank you.
Per, Ben, it's wonderful to have you back with us today. And yes, a year ago we're talking about Rotaract, and today there is Rotaract at Augustana University. I think progress is powerful, and thank you for doing that. I love the idea of a collaboration, so let's keep talking about that as well. Thank you again for being here. And you mentioned Larry Ritz. Boy, it's hard not to smile when you hear the name Larry Ritz. In fact, our Rotarian of the Year award is named after that man, and nominations have opened up. And so as you think of Larry and the role that he played in our community, and that he was such a proud and dedicated Rotarian, think amongst your peers, your fellow Rotarians in this room, and we see on Mondays, and think about somebody you would like to lift up and celebrate in terms of their service over self contributions. Today, we are going to have a look back, aren't we? We're going to look back at the rise of downtown Sioux Falls. Joining us today, former Sioux Falls Mayor Dave Munson. Dave was mayor from 2002 to 2010. We have Mike Cooper, who is the retired planning director from the city of Sioux Falls. He was with the city of Sioux Falls for 32 years. Joe Batcheller, fellow downtown Rotarian, president of Downtown Sioux Falls. Glad to have you here as well. And Regan Smith, downtown Rotarian, you are our moderator. Thank you for bringing this story to life today. I'll turn it over to you. Just let me walk down the steps.
Well, thank you, President Cindy and Rotarians for coming together today. The exec board kind of kicked this around for a little while, and we thought this is a great story to tell. There's a lot of people have been moving to town in recent years, but they don't know how we got there. So, 50 years ago, generations of city leaders, millions of dollars in public and private investment to make downtown Sioux Falls what it is today, the crown jewel of the city, with promise for even more development. The future looks very bright with the Steel District, Sharapa 2, the Jacobson Plaza, the River Greenway Phase 3, and then the potential of the Riverline District also. The draft 2035 downtown plan calls for expanding the borders to the east and to the north. But today we wanted to take a short step back and discuss how we got here and what are some of the challenges that it took to get us here. So we assembled an all-star panel here, some veterans, and then kind of a veteran, a new guy to the scene, but been around for a while too. So thank you very much for joining us. I think we'll start with Mayor Munson. When you became mayor in 2002, Things weren't really happening in downtown. You know, there weren't even that many places you could get lunch. Pretty quiet at night, not a lot of residents. Retail wasn't really strong. We had something called the Loop, where hundreds of teens, young adults drove around in a circle around downtown all night. The Carnegie Town Hall parking lot was called the Losers Lot. I don't know if you remember that. A lot of loud traffic, music, smoking, drinking, loitering. People refused to come downtown. They felt unsafe. Was tough on business, really discouraged business development. Tell us about your effort and the council at the time to close down the Loop. Wasn't definitely without any controversy or opposition.
Yeah, it did have some, and everybody, when we talked about this, everybody says, well, we can't do it, because if we do it, we're just going to chase them someplace else, and it's never going to end. And I just didn't believe that, and I told our people, I says, if that's fine, if they want to move, we'll move right with them. And so we would, when I went down there with the first, right after I was elected, I think, and I went down the corner of 10th and Phillips. And geez, the kids were there, and I tried talking to them, telling them if they would behave, we have no problem. But if they can't behave, we do have a problem. And these were, what they were doing with people had retail businesses down here. They were vandalizing, defecating. They were doing everything you could imagine in there, and they brought no value. So we worked with the police department, and they did a tremendous job. We started really ratcheting down what they could do and what they couldn't do. And so finally, we got to the point where, you know, and this is what I was going to do at one time. I had met with the South Dakota Highway Patrol, Sheriff's Office, and police. And so we had set a date 3 weeks from the time they quit to them coming down here and just having an all-out time with them to get them out of here. Yeah, it was a very, very gingerly said. And so we went down and I don't know how this happened, because we went down there one night and they were gone. And I really attribute that to the police and what they did. And so they moved out to the Western Mall they were there approximately 3 nights. And then they just went away. And, you know, it really made a difference for downtown. People felt safer. They felt like it was a place they wanted to be. And so we just started building from there and working with private developers and the government officials so we could get something going down there. And it's really made leaps and bounds, steps to go forward.
Thanks. I think after that, I recall there were some ordinance changes to allow dining and drinking on the sidewalks, moved the diner down to the city lot at 10th and Phillips. That wasn't without controversy also. We started seeing a lot more activity. Maybe all three of you, talk about the importance of having those type of businesses downtown and getting that going. I don't know, maybe we'll start with Mike and then go to Joe. Or
Sure, I think that was one of the transformative times of downtown, and of course there's a number of others, but when that actually happened, that the Loop was gone, and then people started to look at how could they use the outdoor space better, the sidewalks, other venues. And after a lot of discussion with different organizations, including Downtown Sioux Falls and businesses, the city council came up with the idea of allowing permits to be approved so that people could put chairs and tables outside. And as soon as that happened, it just changed the whole dynamics of downtown. It seemed like almost instantaneously. And so it was really an amazing change. And as the mayor said, the kids found another place to go or to stay. It didn't kill downtown, but it added a whole new vibrancy to downtown. And what's really even more appreciative is that since that has happened, a lot of other communities have emulated what Sioux Falls has done or tried to do with their own downtown sidewalks to get that outdoor experience and then just make it more pedestrian-friendly and more people-friendly.
Yeah, I would say that, even backing up just a few years before Mayor Dave took office, we made a big investment with the Washington Pavilion too. And so all these steps kind of, in a way, were protecting that investment and buying into this vision that champions like Mayor Dave and one of my predecessors, Carol Pagonis, had in believing in downtown and getting people to believe in it again. And then when you started to build in these opportunities for people to dine on the sidewalks, you really enhanced the sociability of downtown. And you created those opportunities for friends to just have spontaneous meetings with one another on the sidewalk. And really, building in that sociability of downtown, I think it still is to this day, I think, sort of the magic ingredient of downtown.
Sure. Well, there's also been a lot of public infrastructure investment downtown over probably 30 years. Falls Park, we mentioned the Washington Pavilion, the River Greenway phases, the renovation of the downtown library, now the Levitt, we got rid of the river ramp, additional parking ramps, and then just this last year, the 8th Street Bridge. A lot of collaboration between public and private investments and ventures, the facade easement program, the Kirby Dog Park, the tax increment financing concept, and many other things. A lot of communities just don't make the investment that Sioux Falls does in their downtown. Projects are controversial, obviously, complicated, cost more, but they can give us higher returns. I think I recently read in Sioux Falls Business, the phase 1 and 2 of the Greenway project cost $9 million, but there was over $130 million in associated redevelopment there. So I think one of the biggest catalysts for that rebirth, and certainly, again, you were involved in a lot of controversial stuff, Mayor, but was the Phillips to the Falls project. That one was a hard one for you and your administration, but really a grand slam for downtown. Any recollection on that time, the difficulties, the financial ones, the environmental, and then your thoughts on how it's turned out?
Well, I think it's turned out great. And I go back a long way when Pitts was down in that area, that one day I was coming home on a Sunday and I looked and I saw all this smoke coming out. So I drove up on Dakota Avenue Hill and looked down and Pitts was just ablaze. And there's these black paper floating all around the air. And I thought, this is a great time to get Pitts moved out of there and to do something. Well, they didn't. They just kind of let it ride and ride. So we got in there, and Mike and the rest of us really got involved with this project because I really felt it was very important. Because I used to tell people if I sat on 10th and Phillips, and someone said, "How do I get to the falls?" I'd say, "Well, you go down to 2nd Street, turn left, go to Main, turn to 5th Street." I think it was Mike. And I turn right, go to 2nd Street, turn right at 2nd Street, and wind your way down there. Well, that wasn't very conducive because you went by this salvage yard that didn't add a lot of appeal, and so we were able to negotiate with them and get them out, and then we started negotiating to get that there, and a lot of people really were hesitant of us doing that. But, we went ahead and got the approvals to do everything we wanted to do, and the next thing we know, we were breaking ground, and we had that road down there. And I really believe there's other things that are very important. I don't want to degrade that at all. There's a lot of things that happen downtown that we could go on for hours talking about, but I think getting the Phillips to the Falls really was something that helped all of us. We got a straight shot down there. People enjoyed it. It was a nice drive. And, before I go any further, I got to say this. We were told, Mike and we were told by a developer that if we got that done, that they would invest in that area. And sure enough, when we got that done, they invested and it made it a really nice housing and a little retail in there. And so we were able to move forward with that. And now you look down there and you look at all the things that are happening, and as Regan said, the tax base is really phenomenal, what we've done with that area. So it's really been a win-win for everybody.
Well,
Mike, you were at the table for that project.
So the street opened in 2004, but going back in time, my initial involvement with downtown was probably when we worked on the first downtown development plan, which was adopted in 1987 by the city. And that's the plan that really started to show the potential for expanding Falls Park to Phillips Avenue, redeveloping Sioux Steel, which everybody thought, what are you talking about? That's never going to happen. So, 35 years ago, you had these great ideas, the vision of what potentially could happen. And as the mayor said, it did take a long time because of all the environmental concern. We had to get some help from our congressional delegation with some funding. But finally, it did all come together, and it was a grand celebration when that happened. And the benefit that's been brought to not only downtown, but the city of Sioux Falls as a result of that has been pretty phenomenal. Because just another interesting story, in the late 18, no, I don't go back quite that far.
Close.
Yes, sometimes it seems like it was, but the late 1980s, downtown was having some pretty rough times. And of course, Phillips to the Falls was going to be one of those things that could help bring some new life to downtown. But I've told the story before that there were a couple times when some of us from the planning office, this was during the summertime, during our lunch break, we went down and with these garbage bags, we were actually pulling weeds out of the sidewalk of downtown. There was dead pigeons on the sidewalk. I'm glad you're done with your lunch. But yeah, it was not a real friendly looking place, and we knew that something had to happen. So again, these great ideas, including the Greenway, they just take a lot of time and they take a lot of leadership. They take a lot of community support to happen, but you just have to stick with it and know that eventually it really needs to happen.
Thanks. This Saturday, the community is going to be installing 67 new sculptures and celebrating 20 years of Sculpture Walk. There have been over 1,000 sculptures placed downtown throughout those years, in addition to the spectacular Arc of Dreams across the Big Sioux River. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about how Sculpture Walk came about?
Sure, another very, very interesting story. And just to kind of preface that, and Joel will probably talk more about this as we get through today, the arts has always been a big thing for downtown Sioux Falls. We know how much it's important today, but maybe not so much 20 years ago. And there was an idea that came from Grand Junction, Colorado, about adding public art into the community, specifically the downtown area. And a guy by the name of Jim Clark, who was instrumental in helping put together a lot of players with city people, with business people, with nonprofits, to kind of set the vision of what this public art could look like for downtown Sioux Falls. And of course, we came up with the idea of placing sculpture through the downtown, starting with Phillips Avenue primarily, but placing in a way that it would be easily accessible to people, so that people could have a chance to be exposed to more art, and thus the name Sculpture Walk came out of that, these were placed close enough that you could walk around and look at the different pieces. And along with that, you could vote on the one that you liked the best, the People's Choice Award. And the city agreed as a partner to say that if we have a People's Choice Award each year, then we will try to purchase that piece of art and place it somewhere in a public setting, whether it's a city park or some other location. And Jim, along with others, was instrumental in getting the businesses to sponsor the pedestals, the bases, and allowing the artists to submit proposals. And there was a judging process. The city has a Visual Arts Commission, which helps review those. Depending on the location, the Parks and Recreation Board might get involved. And then, of course, ultimately, the City Council has to approve the final locations. And I think we probably started out with 30-some locations, and we're at, what now?
67.
We'll be at 67 that will be going up this coming weekend. So again, a really great success story. And Joe can attest to this as well, that you see people coming down with their brochure to look through all the pieces and letting them decide which one they want to vote on. But the idea of bringing public art to downtown, along with the pavilion, through Mayor Munson's leadership, we helped renovate the Orpheum Theater, which is another great venue to have. So the idea of public sculpture, public art, has really expanded throughout other places within the community, but the focus of it really came to be now the 20th anniversary of Sculpture Walk Downtown Sioux Falls.
Well, yeah, and I'll kind of lead you in there before
'Cause you know a little bit about
before
it,
you
too.
steal my question, my next question.
Oh, I'm
here.
sorry.
You talked about the pavilion, which I don't think we can talk enough about, but the investment here at the Orpheum, the Levitt, the State Theater, a lot of private galleries, those type of things. What's the impact or maybe the value of arts and culture in this downtown revival? And we'll start with you, Joe, on this kind of, I think all three of you can comment on that.
Well, you look at any downtown, and really it should be the cultural hub of the community, and that's certainly the case here in Sioux Falls. But yeah, it's taken a lot of work. I don't know if people would say that was the case 25 years ago, but now we do have the pavilion and Sculpture Walk, and since then, of course, the Levitt and the State Theater. What's the impact? I just recently took a look back at what the impact of the State Theater was, just kind of on a cursory look. And if you compare 2019 to 2022, just the pedestrian traffic around the State Theater area, we have 20,000 more people in that area during the winter months. And that's the impact that we were looking for. Usually you'd see, January through March would come around, and there wasn't really a whole lot of activity downtown, and State Theater came along and gave people another reason to come downtown, to go shopping before or after a movie, or get a bite to eat. I look at the Washington Pavilion. That led to a nighttime dining scene in downtown. There really wasn't nighttime dining in downtown. There was Minerva's, but that was really a lunchtime place for people to go to. And now you have places like Parker's Bistro was one of the early places that opened up. And now you've got really this culinary art scene that has developed in downtown as a result. We've got CIA-trained chefs that have come back from New York or wherever to open up a restaurant, that kind of aligns with their vision, with what their talents are. And it spurs on other cultural, arts and culture, entertainment types of opportunities. I think we've got sort of this flywheel going with the arts and cultural offerings in downtown, and now we've got 50 plus free concerts happening, where the rail yard used to be, where Phillips Avenue used to stop, and it was just a brownfield. So to be able to make that kind of transformation from a post-industrial downtown to really being the cultural hub of not just Sioux Falls, but the region is that's a great story. It's a huge win.
I'll just make one more comment about art and culture. For those of you who are new-timers to Sioux Falls, back in the late 1970s, one of the first pieces of art that came to downtown was at Faywick Park, the statue of David. Somewhat controversial at the time. And I remember too that in probably the early 2000s, we had to do a complete renovation of Faywick Park because of some environmental contamination. And part of that was we took the statue of David out so that we could renovate the park. And now where do you put the statue of David back? And again, I think that's probably why we had a Visual Arts Commission that got put together to help work through some of those issues. But one of the great compliments about Sculpture Walk is over the last 20 years, with all the different pieces that we brought, I don't think we've had any or very minimal controversies or complaints about the artwork itself. And I think that's a great compliment to how the program is put together and how it's managed so that it continues to be a real strong asset for downtown Sioux Falls.
Well, I think the arts are hugely, hugely important for any community, and I think their artwork is something that really is going to get you to grow. And I can remember when I was elected that just the fights with the different art groups, there were so many around that, that were there, and they were just really difficult to work with. And so we brought them together, talked to them, we got to share, and we got to embrace each art group, their success. And so we started doing that, and then, I can remember a long time ago that over on 11th Street, there was somebody wanted to put a sculpture on that side of that building, Black Sheep.
A mural.
Yeah, mural, and it was just a catastrophe. But by bringing all these groups together and working through the city, I think we were really able to make the arts work. And you have to keep the arts out in front of what you're doing. And I think, whether it's community theater and what they do wonderful things for us, and the Levitt is what it does. But the arts are what really, I think, bring the community together and what we're going to do here.
Thanks. Joe, talk about the Downtown Sioux Falls organization. Who are your members? What do you do? How do you work with everybody else?
Sure. So DTSF used to be known as Main Street Sioux Falls. It was incorporated in 1988. And, we're really, purpose is really to grow the community, the culture, and the commerce here in downtown Sioux Falls. And so we do that in a number of different ways. We have about 275 members, and one of the things that we do for our members is to put on different events and promotions to bring people downtown and get them into their business. We do that in a number of different ways. So we've got Art and Wine Walk coming up on Friday. That's a beloved event that's been going on for over a decade now, and it's something that people look forward to. A lot of times they can experience the new sculptures during the spring Art and Wine Walk, and hopefully discover some new businesses as well. So we try to build in those opportunities for people to discover downtown in some ways that might best suit them. The other thing that we do, we administer the Business Improvement District. So the Business Improvement District is supported by property owners in downtown, and with that we have a number of different bid programs. Primarily though, it's geared towards keeping downtown clean and beautiful. And so we've got a couple of gentlemen that keep downtown clean with a sidewalk sweeper. We logged up the total number of miles, and you could go from Sioux Falls to New York City with how many sidewalks they clean with that sidewalk sweeper. We've got about 128 hanging flower baskets, about 144 planters, and so we water those flowers. And that's important because when there's a beautiful downtown, when there's a flower program, a lot of times businesses will see a 30% increase in revenue after those programs are started. So we've been doing that for well over a decade, something that people love. We hear comments from visitors to downtown Sioux Falls all the time about how we have such robust flowers, so that's something that's important to keep going. But kind of the next phase for the Business Improvement District is to grow our ambassador program. And so we want downtown Sioux Falls to be the most inviting, welcoming downtown in the country. And one of the ways that other downtowns have done that is with an ambassador program to greet visitors and shoppers and help connect them with destinations that they might want to go to. A component that other downtowns will do is some homeless outreach. We've done a little bit of both for the last couple of years. We've got a great downtown ambassador in Martin Dill, and we're looking to scale that up. So before the end of June, we'll see some more ambassadors out on the street making downtown a more friendly, welcoming place. Those are just a handful of the things that we do.
Yeah, no, thanks for what you do. I'm going to put all three on the spot here. Just let's go through and just what are the top maybe one or two things that you think has contributed to the growth?
Well, I think number one thing is getting rid of the loop. I think that really helped. And I think the other issue they had was to get the Phillipsville Falls finished so that we could. And all of this took place because you had public-private partnershiping. And I think that's the most important thing you can have, too, to do it. But I think when I look back and see what's going on with it, I look and I look out there and say that it's because the people of Sioux Falls embraced what was going on. And I think that's the most important thing you got, is you got to have community support to get these things done.
Mike?
Well, yeah, and I would echo what the mayor said. I think the Greenway project has been a great asset, and it's still a work in progress, obviously. But one of the other things that Regan just briefly mentioned is called the facade easement program, which maybe a lot of you are not aware of, but it's probably not the most publicized thing that we've done over the years. But basically, that started in the early 2000s under Dave's administration as a way to promote redevelopment of some of the older significant buildings in downtown. And at that time, there were quite a few of those. So the idea was that the city could work with a developer to invest in the facade by purchasing an easement, and then there would be some design guidelines that they would have to follow in terms of renovation and redevelopment. And the very first facade easement project was the International Harvester building up on 6th and Main, renovating that. Rick Gorley had that building at the time. And so many of them have been done over the years. I think up to date, I saw, but we've done 35 facade easement programs within the downtown, as well as the East Bank area, since that program was initiated. And there's a definite payback there of what the city invests and what the developer invests, as well as others that see the benefit of those projects. And that also allowed us to kind of start the idea of the lofts and multifamily. And the East Bank, I think, has been another little gem out there that has really started to spur more development within the downtown area itself. But that kind of got going pre-recession. Some of those projects were also done through the facade easement program. And look at today what's happened with the rail yard flats. The rail yard district is starting to get redeveloped. And the Hilton Garden Inn with the old river ramp. So those kind of things, again, as I mentioned before, take some time, they take leadership, but they take partnerships as well, both the public and the private side to happen.
Yeah, I would say, you know, you look at downtown's progress, and a lot of it started with having good downtown plans, and which, Mike, you certainly played a big part in during your tenure with the city, having those champions as well, like Mayor Dave Munson, like Carol Pagonis, to really, you know, be the cheerleader for downtown, getting people to believe in it again. And then, you know, once we had those things in place, you know, spoke about some of those public-private partnerships. And when the city decided to start investing money in downtown, that really created this signal for private development that the city's got our back. This is a good place to put our money. But, you know, to kind of put an umbrella over all of it, I think that everything that has led to the success of downtown is really this sort of community infrastructure, enhancing the sociability of downtown. You know, whether it's making it more walkable or putting sculptures out in the street, the sidewalk, the patio, the sidewalk dining opportunities. You know, we're social creatures. We want to connect with one another. And the number one thing that tourists like to do is to people watch. And, you know, so when you have sidewalk cafes, people can hang out, have dinner, see the people coming and going. People want to go shopping. This is the place where people know that they can come and have some kind of connection at whatever level, whether it's something fleeting or running into an old friend and going out for the night. That, again, that's kind of the magic of downtown, and it's just a bunch of little things kind of built on top of each other that have really made downtown the success story that it is.
Great. Well, we've talked about all the great things that are happening, but now we'll start with you, Joe, and work our way back, and then we'll open it up some questions from the Rotary members. What's the biggest shortcoming, or what are we missing in downtown?
Well, I think, we've talked about design standards in a couple of downtown plans, and I think that, over the next decade, it's probably going to be time for us to really take a harder look at design standards, because we've got developers that have put hundreds of millions of dollars into downtown. We've got developers that have, put a lot less than that in, but have still made a contribution, and when you look at it all together, you want to protect that investment. So that's why it's important to have design standards to kind of set that expectation for the level of development that we want to have. So that's one thing. I would say also phase 4. I'd love to see a phase 4 of the River Greenway, connecting Faywick to the falls. I think there's some great opportunities there on the west side of the Sioux River. Again, that just, one of those opportunities for social interaction. Those would probably be, 2 of the top things on my list.
Sure. Mike, how about you?
Again, the Greenway is really critical. Back in 2004, we did a Big Sioux River Greenway master plan that really addressed the entire loop of the river around the community, but the focus was obviously on downtown. So now we're 20 years into that in terms of implementation. And as Joe has said, and Mayor Munson knows very well, that is one of those big ideas that has to cross over different administrations, because you just can't do it all in 4 years or 8 years. So there's a lot of investment into the downtown Greenway that still needs to be made and should be made based on the idea that we came up with 20 years ago. I would say one of the other things that maybe we're working on that was maybe not as anticipated as much years ago was residential development. Back in the day, the big push for development downtown was offices. We had the River Center, we had the Commerce Center, we had the Phillips Center. All those were new office redevelopment projects, but they didn't have any other mixed use in terms of retail or residential. But I remember having discussions with a guy by the name of Don Dunham, who was developing the River Center, we talked about, should we have some type of multifamily up on the top levels of condominiums or residential. And back then, the sight lines of downtown Greenway were not very attractive, and just the idea of investing that amount of money didn't seem to be a good idea at the time. But that has changed significantly now, and look at all the residential development that's going on now just between 12th and 14th Street, and there's much more that's going to happen in the future. And one of the unintended consequences of when that stuff happens is, again, a story about a multifamily project went up right across the street from City Hall on the west side of Dakota Avenue. And I don't remember the exact year that happened, but one of the things that we started to see with residential development downtown, people have dogs. And people that have dogs downtown needed a place for the dogs to go do their thing. And one early morning, right in front of City Hall in a little grass patch, outside the mayor's office window, there was a guy with his dog just, doing it, what dogs do. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting to see what happens after that. And alas, over the discussion, as Joe can attest, we needed some dog park facilities, and look now what you've come up with. So I would just say, in terms of making downtown more diverse, more mixed use, to continue with that theme, activities, events, entertainment is always going to be a big deal for downtown, and I'm hoping that we don't reach the saturation point of downtown Sioux Falls being able to just address all the requests for different activities and events that happen downtown. And I'll let you have the final comment on that.
Well, I think one thing, Mike talks about that diversity, but I think one that's really been important that we probably keep down on the low, but that really does a good job is the multicultural center. I think that's an area that we're lucky to have that, to bring all the cultures together, and they have different events and they do different things. And the other thing that I would like to look out on the horizon and see happen would, I really hope we can come to an agreement sometime to get a baseball park down here somewhere. I really think a baseball park would enhance the people downtown experience. They can walk to it, they can do whatever they want. And I think, we got to just keep working on those things. And like Mike said, each project takes a long time. There's just no decision made with a magic wand and you do it. You have to work through a lot of hurdles to get it done. You got a lot of opposition. When you talk about the facade easement, we had some really controversial people on that issue there that just thought that wasn't our role, but it really is part of the partnership that we need. So those are, we just need, we really are blessed in Sioux Falls to have great leadership in the departments that we have, and the people of Sioux Falls that work for the city do a tremendous job. And I think we're very, very fortunate to have the type of people we have, and I think we've been able to get, good council members and that really see the future and want to work toward that.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for your time, your efforts, your leadership. President, do we have time for questions from membership?
We do.
Who has a question for these tremendously important people in our community? I see hands over here.
Mike Costanzo here. You've done a wonderful job with the downtown, and it's just been great to see this progress over the years that I've been here. A couple of real estate questions, though. Are there any drawing board questions or any drawing board plans for the Smithfield plant? Anything happening, or what would you like to see happen there, if anything?
For the which land?
Smithfield?
Oh, yeah. For the what? Smithfield, where else?
Nothing, no, there are no drawing board plans. I guess I would say in the 2035 planning process, it has come up. But it's a little dicey making plans for other people's property, so I try to stay away from that.
Yes. But I will say that, the Falls Park Master Plan is still under final review, and some of the initial ideas that I hope will spin off of that would be looking at the whole Weber Avenue corridor, all the way from Falls Park to downtown. And so there are ideas of what could happen to the Smithfield parking lots on the east side of Weber Avenue. There's an old quarry back there that the city owns, and there's also some talk about realignment of some of the major streets that go through there to Cliff Avenue. So the actual plant itself, I don't think is currently being looked at, but but some of the parking and other surrounding property, including the greenway, is certainly under discussion about what could happen around that.
I think it'd be just a Herculean task, and I don't know how you would go about doing it, because it's privately owned, and for us to come with condemnation. And I think that you just have to learn to live with it. And I think they've done some really good things overall. I can remember when I was a kid growing up, the odor was continuous from that plant. Now they're containing that, so you have it every once in a while. But if you look at the other side, it's a heck of an economic engine for us to have here in Sioux Falls. But I don't see anything where you could do much with it.
Hi, Ron Nelson. My first 10 years in the real estate business were with Don Dunham, and so a lot of what we're talking about here today is kind of a trip down memory lane. I'll just drop a couple memories. I do remember after the Pitts fire, I was actually on the original Phillips to the Falls task force with Metley and group, and after that fire, my first phone call Monday morning was to Metley's office just saying, I hope you can account for your whereabouts this weekend, because I think he was smiling ear to ear when that happened. And so, and you were talking about the controversy associated with the statue of David. For the old folks in the audience, you might remember somebody put a diaper on Statue of David way back when. My freshman year in college, I was here probably in South Dakota, a month and a half, didn't know much about town. Late night, there was a knock on my door. Guy from town came in and said, got a great practical joke. I said, okay, I'm in. What is it? He said, there's this statue downtown of David, and we're going to put a diaper on it. So if you've ever wondered, I was the guy.
I think one thing that we've probably missed, when I think about it, is when you're starting this thing out to get people to invest, but Don Dunham took a lot of risk. When he went up and put the 11th and Phillips Commerce Center, whatever you call it now, where the chamber's at, he did that project, and he was very aggressive in getting things done. So I think that to get this thing kickstarted, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. He was definitely one of those early cheerleaders like her.
Yeah, he really was. If you said you needed something done, he'd go do it.
He was a great leader in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, too.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lum. I have thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. My question is, I've heard a lot of people talk about baseball stadium downtown. So I am wondering if someone can answer the question, why baseball? And if it's not baseball, what else can we be thinking about as kind of big opportunities for downtown?
Well, I think baseball is the sport that people here naturally gravitate towards because we have the Sioux Falls Canaries. I think that I think that's a little bit of the why. I think the idea behind a stadium is an interesting one. It's something that it can be stimulate growth in the surrounding area if it's done right. If it's not baseball and we're talking stadiums, I think the next natural sport to look at would be soccer because it has the highest level of participation in youth sports. You look at MLS, and that is growing. It's a solid league, and they have a development league that could be a good fit for Sioux Falls. So there needs to be, I think the debate whether there's a stadium or not needs to be had, and then whether it's soccer or baseball that needs to be had. And if it's not a stadium, it needs to be some kind of, if we're talking Riverline District, it needs to be some kind of community amenity, something that's going to provide benefit, provide the greatest good for the greatest number of people. What that is, it's hard to say. There's a lot of great ideas out there that people contributed through the public input process. It's interesting because there were some people that were very much for a stadium, some people that were very much against it, but interestingly enough, they were kind of more in the minority of the feedback that was received. Housing was another one that came back, but that one there wasn't really a strong proportion saying that it needs to be housing either. So, I think when it comes to the Riverline District, it's still, that cake is not baked at all, and there's still a lot more thought that needs to go into it.
Well, I have the microphone, and I'm going to ask the last question, if I might. What does this group need to think about moving forward? Our beautiful, amazing downtown didn't happen by accident. We barely scratched the surface on stories and opportunities, and there's a lot of things that happen behind the curtain. What's important for this group to think about and stay in tune with so that our downtown continues to thrive and be absolutely fantastic? Final thoughts from everybody.
I'll take a start at, it's a lot of things, and there's a lot more public awareness, public interest in downtown today than there ever has been in the past. And, we can go back in time and look at some of the plans that were done, such as the first downtown plan. There was very little public involvement with that, just because we knew we had to start with something. So you kind of have to have somebody, some group to set the vision of where you want the ship to go. But the engine to drive that ship really has to come from the community, from the public side, the private side. And what I've learned over the years is that you have a lot of great ideas that people say they would like to see happen, that they want to see happen, but the market, the financial impact has to be workable. And so somebody has to come along and say, this investment makes sense, this is what we think is the best for downtown Sioux Falls to make it a reality. And that's what's happened over the years on the private side. But I'll go back to the residential growth and the entertainment growth of Sioux Falls is going to be really key, because, how many years ago would anybody have thought that we would have a downtown Ace Hardware, a downtown Lewis drugstore, the downtown Sunshine store is still vibrant. So those kind of amenities are important, again, to have a mixed culture of downtown. And the more people that you have work downtown and live downtown, the more demand there's going to be for entertainment and other kinds of events.
30 seconds, each of you.
No, I agree. I think that you really have to get the housing downtown and the retail comes, but I think one thing we overlook a lot of times is I think the importance of Sunshine. Sunshine is really an important grocery store for this downtown area that people use it. And I remember when they were talking about shutting it down, I thought that'd be a travesty to shut that down because you don't have it. So those are, they serve as great purpose.
I'll just say real quick, I think you look at downtown, and downtown Sioux Falls is a complete neighborhood. We have everything here in downtown, more or less, that you could need in a neighborhood. And I would just say that, I think that downtown serves as a good example for how other neighborhoods in Sioux Falls can evolve by adding a corner grocery store or a restaurant. We're seeing a new place go up in over by the Cathedral District restaurant. And so I see downtown as an example, and think of it that way with how you view your neighborhoods.
I'm just glad we got through this whole session without anybody talking about parking. But we'll save that for another day, right?
Yeah, we could do a whole Rotary meeting on that.
Well, this was a wonderful journey to bring us all on. Thank you so much for being here. Help me thank our guests and our moderator. On May 8th, we will be back at the Holiday Inn, and we will have Senator John Thune with us. Thank you all for being a part of Rotary today. Rotary is adjourned.
Well, thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Nice job.
There's so many things.